They say you can't judge a book by its cover. But in the glittering, cutthroat world of the 1%, that's the only judgment that matters. So when a group of high society bullies saw a woman in a simple grey dress sitting alone at an exclusive bar, they saw weakness. They saw a nobody. They pushed her. They mocked her. They knocked her down, laughing as they did. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that the simple woman they just humiliated was Annalise Blackwell, the fiercely private and deeply loved wife of the most powerful and ruthless billionaire in the city, and he just found out. The Gilded Garter wasn't just a bar, it was a statement. Tucked away on a cobblestone street in Soho, it was the kind of place that didn't have a sign, only a reputation. Inside, it was a world of dark mahogany, burnished brass, and velvet curtains the color of dried blood. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the sharp botanical tang of artisanal gin. The clientele was a curated collection of beautiful, wealthy, and bored individuals who spoke in low, confident murmurs. And then there was Anna. Annalise Blackwell sat at a small, two-top table near the back, a position that afforded her a perfect view of the room's subtle theatrics. She was nursing a simple glass of sparkling water with a lime, her phone dark on the table beside her. She was waiting for her sister, Sarah, who, as usual, was running late. To the casual observer, Anna was invisible, and that was precisely how she liked it. She wore no makeup, save for a touch of lip balm. Her auburn gold hair was pulled back in a simple, elegant knot. Her dress was a plain, grey wool sheath, perfectly tailored, but utterly devoid of any logo or identifying mark of luxury. The only piece of jewelry she wore was a thin, unadorned platinum band on her left ring finger. She looked, in the context of the room, simple. She was watching the bartender, a man named Miguel with slicked-back hair and a vest so tight it looked like armor, perform a symphony with a cocktail shaker. He was a master of his craft. Anna appreciated mastery, whether it was in a boardroom, a kitchen, or behind a bar. The heavy front door swung open, admitting a blast of cold October air and a trio that immediately shifted the room's gravitational pull. They didn't just enter, they conquered. The leader was a woman in her late 20s with a severe blonde bob and a face that was beautiful in the way a marble statue is beautiful, cold, perfect, and lifeless. She was poured into a crimson dress that probably cost more than Anna's entire wardrobe. This was Beatrice van der Meer, an heiress to an old money real estate fortune. Flanking her were her disciples. Chloe Davies, a brunette with a nervous laugh, echoed Beatrice's style but lacked her bone-deep arrogance. And then there was Tad Beaumont, a man with a floppy haircut and the weak chin of someone who had never been told no in his entire life. They scanned the room, which was full. Their eyes, predatory and dismissive, swept over the patrons. And then Beatrice's gaze landed on Anna, sitting alone at her two-top. Beatrice glided over, her two shadows in tow. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice was not a question, it was a command. It was high and sharp, like the sound of ice cracking in a crystal glass. Anna looked up, her expression pleasant. "Hello." "We need this table," Beatrice announced, gesturing to the empty chair where Sarah was supposed to be. Anna blinked, a small, polite smile gracing her lips. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm waiting for someone." Beatrice let out a short, incredulous laugh. She looked at Chloe. "She's waiting for someone." Chloe giggled nervously. "So funny." Tad leaned in, his cologne overwhelming. "Look, sweetheart, you've had your water. This is prime real estate. You can't just squat." "I'm afraid I am waiting," Anna repeated, her voice still quiet, but a new firmness underpinning the words. My sister should be here any moment. Beatrice's eyes did a slow, deliberate crawl down Anna's grey wool dress, lingering on the simple flats, peeking out from under the table. Her lip curled. Right. Your sister? She sneered, the implication hanging heavy in the air. People like you don't have sisters who come to places like this. Look, this table is wasted on, whatever this is. She waved a dismissive hand at Anna. We are paying customers. As am I, Anna said, gesturing to her glass. Oh, please, Beatrice scoffed. Miguel, she barked, snapping her fingers. The bartender, who had been studiously ignoring them, finally looked over, his face a mask of professional neutrality. This person is bothering us. Can you find her somewhere more appropriate to sit? The kitchen, perhaps? Miguel's eyes met Anna's. He was a regular at the soup kitchen where Anna volunteered on Thursdays. He knew her simply as Annie, the woman who was better at chopping carrots than anyone he'd ever met. He didn't know her last name, but he knew her character. Miss Vandermeer, Miguel said, his voice smooth and low. Mrs. Thorne is a guest like any other. The table is hers until she decides to leave it. He'd used the name she'd given at the kitchen, her maiden name. Beatrice looked momentarily stunned, as if a piece of furniture had just spoken back to her. Mrs. Thorne, how very quaint. Fine. But she didn't leave. Instead, she and her friends took the only other available spot, a tiny awkward table right next to Anna's, so close their chairs were almost touching. The move was aggressive, a deliberate invasion of her space. Can you believe the nerve? Beatrice said, her voice now pitched to Carrie. They'll let anyone in off the street now. This place has gone to the dogs. Probably bought that dress at a charity shop. It's like she doesn't even know where she is, Chloe whispered, loud enough for Anna to hear every word. She probably doesn't, Tad snickered, pulling out his phone. Probably thinks this is the Olive Garden. Anna picked up her phone. A text from Sarah. Stuck in a meeting from hell. CEO just flew in from Singapore. Going to be hours. I'm so sorry. Rain check. Anna sighed softly, not in frustration at her sister, but in mild disappointment. She typed back, no problem. Work first. Talk tomorrow. Love you. She put her phone away and began to gather her small purse. She would just leave. It wasn't worth the energy. The air was too thick with entitlement, and she had no patience for it tonight. She laid a $20 bill on the table for her $3 water and prepared to stand. The moment Anna began to move, Beatrice saw it as a victory. She smirked at Chloe, a triumphant, ugly little expression. See? All it takes is a little pressure. The mice always scurry back to their holes. Anna stood up, pushing her chair back gently. She was a woman of average height, but she held herself with a quiet poise that often made her seem taller. She turned to move past their table, which was blocking the narrow aisle. Excuse me, she said. Beatrice, who was in the middle of taking a large sip of her third martini, which she'd ordered by screaming, "The usual," at a passing busboy, looked up. She saw Anna, waiting patiently, and in that moment, a switch flipped in Beatrice's mind. The boredom, the alcohol, and the visceral offense she took at Anna's simplicity all coalesced into a single, malicious impulse. You want to get by? Beatrice said, her voice syrupy sweet. By all means. And she stumbled. It was a theatrical, poorly executed lurch, but it was effective. Beatrice fell forward, accidentally, shoving her entire body into Anna's. The martini glass flew from her hand. But it wasn't Anna who got the worst of it. The sticky, dark pink liquid of a cosmopolitan, Beatrice's usual, splashed all over the front of Beatrice's own crimson dress. There was a collective gasp from the surrounding tables. Beatrice looked down at her ruined dress. Her face, which had been set in a mask of mocking arrogance, contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage, and she turned it all on Anna. "You!" she shrieked, her voice echoing in the suddenly silent bar. "You idiot! Look what you made me do! You clumsy, simple cow!" Anna, who had been knocked off balance by the shove, was pressed against the wall. I didn't." "You did. You bumped into me. You did this on purpose." Beatrice was vibrating with fury. This dress was new. It was a one-of-a-kind. "You can't even stand still. My God, can't you do anything right?" Tad, seeing the drama unfold, had his phone out. He was filming, a delighted, cruel grin on his face. "This is gold," he whispered to Chloe. "You'll pay for this," Beatrice snarled. She grabbed a cloth napkin from her table and began dabbing furiously at the stain, only making it worse. "This dress is worth more than your entire life. You probably don't even have insurance." Anna just stood there, taking it. The humiliation was a physical force, pressing her against the wall. She could feel the eyes of everyone in the bar. Some were curious, some were amused, and some were filled with pity. The pity was the worst. "What's the matter?" Beatrice taunted, stepping closer until she was directly in Anna's face. Anna could smell the gin on her breath. "Cat got your tongue? Or can't you simple people string a sentence together?" She then did the unforgivable. She reached out and pushed Anna. Not a stumble, not an accident. A hard, two-handed shove to the chest. "Get out!" Beatrice hissed, her voice low and venomous. Anna, unprepared, stumbled backward. Her heel caught on the leg of her own table, and she went down. She didn't fall hard, but she fell. She landed in a heap on the polished floor, her purse spilling its contents. A tube of lip balm, a set of keys, a small, well-worn paperback of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and her wallet. The entire bar went silent. Even Beatrice seemed momentarily shocked by what she had done. Tad's phone was still recording. "Holy," he breathed. Anna stayed on the floor for a beat, her heart hammering. The fall had knocked the wind out of her, but more than that, it had knocked the composure out of her. She was, for the first time in a very long time, completely and utterly humiliated. Then, from the floor, she looked up. She looked past Beatrice's triumphant, sneering face. She looked at Tad's phone, the little red light glowing. She looked at Chloe's horrified but fascinated expression. She looked at Miguel, who was already coming around the bar, his face like thunder. She pushed herself up. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Her hands were shaking, but her voice, when she spoke, was shockingly clear. "Are you finished?" she asked. It wasn't a question of defiance. It was a question of genuine curiosity. "Are you finished with this performance?" The question so disarmed Beatrice that she had no response. She just stood there, her mouth open. Anna calmly knelt and began gathering her things. Her book, her keys, her lip balm. She put them back in her purse. Her wallet was open, and a few cards had slipped out. A library card, a metro card, a blood donor card. You, Beatrice stammered, trying to regain the upper hand. "You're paying for this dress." "Miguel," Anna said, standing up. Her grey dress was now smudged with dust from the floor. "My apologies for the disturbance. Please add Miss Vandermeer's dress to my tab." Miguel, who had reached her side, just stared. "Mrs. Thorne, you don't have to." "Please," Anna said. "And a new martini for her. It seems she spilled hers." She turned and looked Beatrice dead in the eye. The heiress, for all her bluster, actually took a step back. There was something in Anna's gaze, not anger, not fear, but a profound, bottomless disappointment that unnerved her. "I hope the rest of your evening," Anna said, her voice barely a whisper, "is everything you deserve." And with as much dignity as she could muster, she walked out of the Gilded Garter, the sound of Tad and Chloe's nervous, belated laughter echoing behind her. The cold night air hit Anna like a slap, clearing her head instantly. The adrenaline from the encounter was already fading, leaving behind a cold, hollow ache. She didn't walk to the corner to hail a cab. She didn't pull out her phone to order an Uber. She walked 2 blocks east, then 1 block north, to a quiet, tree-lined street. A discreet black sedan, a Maybach S680, so devoid of chrome it looked like a shadow, was parked in a tow-away zone. It had been there for 30 minutes, utterly ignored by the city. The driver's side door opened, and a man in a simple black suit stepped out. "Mrs. Blackwell?" he said, his voice a calm, British baritone. He opened the rear door. "Thank you, David," Anna said, sliding into the buttery leather interior. David was ex-SS and had been with her husband, Marcus, for a decade. He was the head of their personal security detail, and tonight he was on driver duty because Anna had insisted she didn't need a team to go meet her sister. He got back in the driver's seat, the partition between them gliding up silently. He didn't ask why she was early or why her dress was rumpled. He simply drove. The car moved silently through the city, a ghost in the river of yellow taxis and honking SUVs. They didn't go to a glittering tower on Billionaire's Row. They drove to a quiet, historic brownstone in Gramercy Park, one that had its own private garden, accessible only by a special key. The building was, in fact, 4 brownstones, hollowed out and combined into a single, magnificent, and completely invisible urban fortress. David parked in the underground garage. Anna took the private elevator straight up to the penthouse. The doors opened not into a cold museum of modern art, but into a home. The walls were lined with overflowing bookshelves. The furniture was comfortable, worn and clearly chosen for function, not form. A fire was crackling in a massive stone fireplace, and sitting on the floor in front of it, surrounded by laptops and blueprints, was Marcus Blackwell. Marcus was a paradox. To the world, he was the demon of Silicon Alley, a ruthless, reclusive tech billionaire who had built his empire, Blackwell Industries, from nothing. He was known for hostile takeovers, for vaporizing competitors, and for an intellect that moved at a speed most people found terrifying. To Anna, he was just Marcus, the shy, brilliant man she'd met in a college library, back when his empire consisted of a single, overheating desktop computer and a dream about data encryption. He looked up as she entered, his intense grey eyes instantly softening. "Hey, you're early." "Sarah Flake again?" "Meeting," Anna said, her voice tight. She walked over and kissed the top of his head. His hair was messy, as if he'd been running his hands through it for hours. "Good," he mumbled, his eyes already drifting back to the screen. "I'm on the verge of a breakthrough with the new quantum something." He stopped. He smelled her perfume, and underneath it, the stale, boozy scent of a bar. And something else. Fear. He turned, really looking at her this time. He saw the dust on her dress. He saw the faint red mark on her cheek where she must have braced her fall. He saw the tremor in her hand. His entire demeanor changed. The distracted genius vanished, replaced by the demon. His eyes went flat and cold. "Annie," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "What happened?" Anna tried to wave it off. "It's nothing, truly. A woman just spilled a drink." "You fell." It wasn't a question. "I stumbled." "Who was she?" "Marcus, please. It's not a big deal. It was just an unpleasant encounter. Some very drunk, very unhappy people. I'd rather just forget it." She didn't want to tell him. Not because she was afraid of him, but because she knew what he was capable of. She had seen him dismantle a too-big-to-fail bank because its CEO had been rude to a waiter. Marcus had a very specific, very rigid code of ethics, and at the top of that code was a zero-tolerance policy for bullies. He saw the world in code, ones and zeros. You were either a good person or you were an obstacle. "Anna," he said, standing up. He was a tall man, and in the low light of the fire, he looked imposing. "You're shaking. Tell me what happened. Tell me who it was." "I don't know their names," she lied, but she had heard Miguel say it. Ms. Vandermeer. "Marcus, I mean it. Let it go. It was just a stupid, humiliating moment in a stupid bar. If you react, it just gives it power. It makes it real. I just want a shower and a cup of tea." He searched her face for a long time. He saw the exhaustion. He saw the humiliation she was trying to hide. And he saw the strength. She was not a damsel in distress. She was his partner. "Okay," he said, the ice in his eyes receding, replaced by the familiar warmth. "Okay, Annie. Tea and a shower. I'll put this away." He gestured to his work. She smiled, a real smile this time. "What's the breakthrough?" He let out a breath, visibly forcing himself to stand down. "I think I've just figured out how to make lithium-ion batteries obsolete. Well, it's complicated. Involves carbon nanotubes and a whole lot of math." "Well," she said, going to the staircase. "You go make batteries obsolete. I'm going to go wash the day off." He watched her climb the stairs. He waited until he heard the water in their master bathroom turn on. Then he walked back to his desk, but not to his blueprints. He picked up his phone, a nondescript black slab of metal that had no branding and was probably the most secure device on the planet. He made a call. "Gavin," he said, his voice flat again. "I need you. Now." He hung up. He looked out the window at the sleeping city. "An unpleasant encounter," he repeated to himself. He strode over to the elevator and rode it down to the security hub in the sub-basement. Gavin was already there, materializing from a side office. He was a tall, lean man with the same quiet intensity as David. "Sir, my wife was at a bar tonight, the Gilded Garter in Soho. She left at approximately 9:15 p.m. She was distressed. I want to know what happened." "Yes, sir. I want everything, Gavin. I want CCTV from inside and outside the bar. I want audio. I want the names of every person she interacted with. And I want to know who pushed her." Gavin didn't even blink. "Understood, sir. It will take a few hours to acquire the internal footage." "You have one," Marcus said. He looked at the wall of monitors. "And Gavin, find out who Ms. Vandermeer is." Gavin was better than his word. It didn't take an hour. It took 45 minutes. Marcus sat in the cooled, dark security room, a cup of untouched tea growing cold beside him. On the main screen, a multi-angle feed played. He watched the entire encounter from 4 different angles, including a high-resolution camera above the bar that Gavin had acquired from the bar's cloud backup. He watched Beatrice's approach. He heard her sneer, "We need this table." He watched Anna's polite refusal. He listened to the taunts. "Charity shop." "Olive Garden." He felt a cold, familiar rage building in his chest. This was the world he tried to shield her from, the world of casual cruelty she always insisted on facing head-on. Then he watched the stumble. He watched the shove. He zoomed in, frame by frame. It was deliberate, malicious. And then he watched his wife fall. He watched her spill her purse. He watched her get up, her hands shaking. He listened to her impossible, infuriating grace. Please add Miss Vandermeer's dress to my tab. Jesus, Annie, he whispered, clenching his fist so hard his knuckles turned white. On a second monitor, Gavin pulled up a file. Beatrice Vandermeer, he said, his voice a neutral monotone. 28 years old, only daughter of Hendrik Vandermeer, CEO of Vandermeer Holdings, a legacy real estate and development firm. They've been in New York since the 1800s. The name clicked. Marcus turned to Gavin. Vandermeer Holdings, aren't they? Yes, sir, Gavin said, anticipating. They are the lead bidder on the Hudson Yards Omega project, the multi-billion-dollar tech integration contract you're opening for tender next month. Marcus stared at the screen, at Beatrice's sneering face, frozen on the CCTV feed, at her father's company logo on the other screen, the two images blurred. They were the front-runners, Gavin continued. Hendrik Vandermeer has been lobbying your office for a meeting for 6 months. He's also a co-chair for this weekend's Metropolis ball at the Met. The gala, Marcus said. He and Anna were supposed to attend. It was the one event she truly despised, but his company was a primary sponsor of the new technology wing, and his presence was non-negotiable. Yes, sir. Beatrice is on the junior committee. She's expected to be there, as are her friends. Gavin brought up 2 more files. Chloe Davies, daughter of a city councilman, and Tad Beaumont. His family owns a lot of print media. Gavin then pulled up a 3rd window. It was a social media platform, Tad's private, locked Instagram story. Mr. Beaumont was kind enough to document the encounter, sir. He pressed play. Marcus watched the shaky, gleeful phone footage. He heard Tad snickering. Look at this little mouse. He heard Beatrice's sharp whisper, you simple thing. And he watched Anna fall, this time from a low, cruel angle. The video was captioned, some trash taking itself out at the gutter. LOL. Marcus Blackwell's face became a mask of absolute stillness. He felt no rage, no heat, just a cold, calculating and profound sense of clarity. Gavin, he said. Sir, make a copy of that video, the high-resolution one, all angles. Sync the audio. I want it. Pristine. Yes, sir. And the social media post. Save it. All of it. Done, sir. Then erase our footsteps. The Gilded Garter. Tad Beaumont's account. We were never there. This is a private matter. No one knows we have this but you and me. Of course, sir. One more thing. I want a full, deep dive financial and operational analysis of Vandermeer Holdings. I want to know every partner, every loan, every project, every potential weakness. I want it on my desk by Friday. Sir, Gavin said, the first hint of confusion in his voice. The Metropolis ball is this Saturday. That's a compressed timeline for a full hostile audit. I know, Marcus said, standing up. That's why you need to start now. He rode the elevator back up to the penthouse. The house was silent. He walked into their bedroom. Anna was asleep, her face relaxed and peaceful. Her simple grey dress was thrown over a chair, the dust and spilled drink a stark reminder. He picked it up, his touch gentle. He looked at the simple wool, the charity shop dress. He knew this dress. She'd bought it at a small boutique in Brooklyn when they were on an unplugged weekend. She'd loved it because it was unfussy. He hung it carefully in the back of his own closet. He would not let her throw it away. He would keep it as a reminder. He looked back at his sleeping wife. They thought she was simple. They thought she was nothing. They had no idea. She wasn't just his wife. She was his shield. She was the one who pulled him back from the brink, who reminded him of his own humanity, who kept the demon in its cage, and tonight the world had pushed his shield. He sat in the chair opposite the bed, watching her breathe. He would not sleep. He would sit, and he would plan. The Metropolis ball was on Saturday. He would let Hendrik van der Meer and his arrogant daughter have their front-runner status for a few more days. He would let them walk into that gala, believing the world was theirs for the taking. He was not a bully. He was a predator. And predators knew one thing above all else: patience. Saturday night. The air over Manhattan was crisp and clear, and the grand facade of the Metropolitan Museum of Art was lit up like a jewel box. This was the Metropolis Ball, the apex of the New York social calendar. It was a night where power, money, and art collided in a dazzling, dangerous spectacle. Inside, the great hall had been transformed. Towering arrangements of white orchids and silver branches reached toward the ceiling, glittering under the museum's famous lights. The sound of a string orchestra echoed softly, a civilized veneer over the raw ambition that thrummed in the room. Beatrice van der Meer was in her element. She wore a strapless, crimson Dior gown that was so voluminous it demanded its own zip code. Her blonde hair was swept up in an elaborate, painful-looking twist. She was holding court near the main staircase, Chloe and Tad flanking her, sipping baccarat flutes of champagne. "Daddy!" she trilled, spotting her father. "Isn't it divine? I feel like we own this place." Hendrik van der Meer, a portly man with a florid face, beamed at her. "Just a little longer, my dear. Tonight is the night. Marcus Blackwell is the guest of honor. He's sponsoring the entire new wing. I've been assured I will get 5 minutes with him. Just 5 minutes. And the Omega project is ours." "Oh, it's ours, Daddy," Beatrice said, scanning the crowd. "I'll be sure to introduce myself. He's new money, after all. He needs someone like me to show him how things are done." "That's my girl," Hendrik said, patting her arm. Across the room, the main doors opened. The press line flashes, which had been constant, suddenly exploded into a frenzy. The orchestra faltered for a half-second. Marcus Blackwell had arrived. He was not what Beatrice had expected. She'd seen photos, of course, but they didn't do him justice. He wasn't wearing a flashy, fashion-forward tuxedo. He was in a simple, perfectly tailored black tux by a Savile Row tailor, so exclusive they didn't even have a website. He was tall, and he moved with the fluid, dangerous grace of a panther. But it wasn't him that held the room's attention. It was the woman on his arm. Anna. She was not the simple woman from the bar. Well, she was, but the world couldn't see it. Her red-gold hair was down, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. Her makeup was minimal, but it highlighted the astonishing clarity of her green eyes and the sharp intelligence of her features. And the dress. It was not crimson. It was not covered in sequins. It was a bespoke Bottega Veneta gown in a shade of deep, shimmering emerald green. It was deceptively simple, with a high neck and long sleeves, but it clung to her body as if it were spun from water. Around her neck was her only jewelry, but it was enough to silence the room. It was a necklace of brilliant cut diamonds, arranged not in a gaudy cascade, but in the precise, delicate pattern of the Orion constellation. It was a piece no one had ever seen before, because Marcus had designed it for her himself and had the stones custom cut. Beatrice van der Meer stared, her champagne flute frozen halfway to her mouth. "My God," Chloe whispered, her eyes wide. "Who is that?" I don't know," Beatrice said, her voice small. She squinted. She looks familiar? Probably some European royalty, Tad dismissed, already looking for a refill. Marcus and Anna glided through the room. They didn't stop for the air kisses and the schmoozing. They headed straight for the new technology wing. But a few people, a senator, a bank CEO, the mayor, managed to intercept them. Marcus was polite, but brief. His attention was, as always, entirely on his wife. He would take her hand, whisper something in her ear, and she would laugh. A real, genuine laugh that cut through the stuffy pretension of the room. They were a unit, an impenetrable fortress of two. Anna was, as always, nervous at these events. She hated the feeling of being on display. She held Marcus's arm tightly. "You okay, Annie?" he murmured, his lips near her ear. "Fine," she breathed. "It's just a lot of surfaces. No depth." "I know. We'll stay for the speeches. We'll say hello to the curator. And then I'm taking you home and we're ordering a pizza." "A pizza?" she said, smiling. "After all this, especially after all this." He was pulled away by the museum's director, leaving Anna alone for a moment. She drifted, as she always did, toward the art. She found herself in a quiet alcove, standing in front of a small, breathtaking Vermeer painting. She loved Vermeer. She loved the quiet, the light, the celebration of the ordinary. She was so lost in the painting, in the simple, profound beauty of a woman pouring milk, that she didn't hear the footsteps approach. "Well, well, well." The voice was like acid. Anna froze. She turned. Beatrice van der Meer was standing there, a smirk on her face. She was alone, having ditched her father and friends to network. I'm sorry," Anna said, confused. "Don't I'm sorry me," Beatrice sneered, her eyes raking over Anna's dress. "Nice knockoff. How did you get in? Did you come in through the kitchens? Are you working the event?" Anna just stared. Beatrice didn't recognize her. Without the grey wool dress, without the context of the bar, she was just another woman. I think you have me confused with someone else," Anna said, already trying to walk away. "Oh no," Beatrice said, blocking her path. She snapped her fingers. "I know exactly who you are. You're the stain! From the bar, the gilded garter." Her voice was rising, and a few people turned to look. "My God," Beatrice laughed, a loud, braying sound. "The nerve! You follow me here? Are you stalking me? I should have you arrested." "Ms. van der Meer," Anna said, her voice low and steady. "Please, you're making a scene." "I'm making a scene? You're the one who's trespassing. Waitress," she yelled at a passing server. "This woman isn't a guest. Call security. I want her removed." "Beatrice, what in God's name are you doing?" Hendrik, her father, was rushing over, his face red. "I'm handling this, Daddy. This pauper snuck in. She's probably here to steal the silver." "I am not," Anna said, her cheeks finally flushing with anger. This was too much. "Then who are you?" Beatrice shrieked. "You're a nobody. You're a simple, pathetic nothing." "She's not nothing." The voice cut through the air like a razor. Marcus Blackwell stepped into the alcove. He didn't look angry. He looked bored, which was, as his competitors knew, infinitely more terrifying. Beatrice froze. Her entire world stopped. Mr. Blackwell," she stammered, her face instantly shifting into a grotesque mask of fawning adoration. I'm so sorry. I was just dealing with this gatecrasher. She's been harassing me. You understand?" She smiled, a wide, desperate smile, expecting him to thank her. Marcus didn't even look at her. He looked only at Anna. He held out his hand. "Are you all right, my love?" Anna took his hand. "I'm fine, Marcus. Just tired." Beatrice's smile didn't fade. It collapsed. Her face went slack with a horror so profound it was almost comical. She looked at Marcus's hand in Anna's. "My love?" she whispered. Hendrik van der Meer looked like he was having a heart attack. "Mr. Blackwell, I don't understand." Marcus finally turned his cold grey eyes on Beatrice. He gave her a polite, terrifying little smile. "Miss van der Meer, Mr. van der Meer, how wonderful to finally meet you in person." He pulled Anna gently to his side, his arm wrapping around her waist as if she were made of spun glass. "I'd like you to formally meet my wife, Anneliese. Anneliese Thorne Blackwell." Silence. It was a profound, suffocating silence that swallowed the orchestra, the chatter, and the clinking of glasses. The small crowd that had gathered to watch the scene was frozen. Beatrice van der Meer's face went from pale to white, to a sickening shade of grey. The baccarat flute she was holding slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor. "Wife!" she breathed. The word was a puff of air. Chloe and Tad had pushed through the crowd, arriving just in time to see the climax. Chloe's hand flew to her mouth. Tad's jaw was on the floor. But she's simple," Chloe blurted out, before Tad could slap a hand over her mouth. "She is," Marcus agreed, his voice dangerously soft. He looked down at Anna with a tenderness that made the air around them seem to warm. "She's simply the most brilliant, compassionate, and valuable person in this room. Something you," and his eyes snapped back to Beatrice, "wouldn't understand. Mr. Blackwell, I... Beatrice was hyperventilating. She turned to her father, desperate. "Daddy, I didn't know." "And that, Miss van der Meer, is the entire problem, isn't it?" Marcus said. He was no longer smiling. "You didn't know. So you assumed. You saw a woman, alone, dressed modestly, and you assumed she was nothing. You assumed she was trash." "No, it was a misunderstanding," Beatrice pleaded, her eyes darting around. She was looking for an exit, but she was penned in by her own creation. "A misunderstanding," Marcus said. "Let's be clear, shall we? I hate ambiguity." He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out, not a wallet, but his black, unmarked phone. He tapped the screen. "I believe you first met my wife last Tuesday, at the Gilded Garter." Beatrice's blood ran cold. I don't lie, Beatrice," Marcus commanded, and the force in his voice made her flinch. "I have a personal rule. I don't do business with liars or bullies." "Mr. Blackwell," Hendrik finally found his voice, stepping forward. He was sweating profusely. "I'm sure this is all a terrible mix-up. My daughter, she's high-strung. She's a criminal, Mr. van der Meer," Marcus said flatly. "Assault is, I believe, still a crime in this city." "Assault?" Beatrice shrieked. "I barely touched her." "Oh, I think you did more than touch her," Marcus said. He turned his phone so the screen was visible to the Van der Meers and the now rapt audience. It wasn't Tad's grainy, shaky cam footage. It was crystal clear, high-definition, multi-angle CCTV footage. It was the feed from Gavin's security hub. He had edited it. The main screen showed the high-angle shot from the bar's camera. A picture-in-picture window showed a close-up on Beatrice's face, contorted with rage. A third window showed Tad gleefully filming, and the audio was pristine. The crowd watched in horrified silence as the entire scene played out. They heard, "You simple thing." They saw the deliberate, malicious shove. And they saw Anneliese Blackwell, the wife of the most powerful man in the room, go crashing to the floor. The video ended. Marcus put his phone back in his pocket. Hendrik Vandermeer looked as if he'd been shot. He turned to his daughter, his face purple. "Beatrice, what did you do?" "It was a joke," she sobbed, her carefully constructed world detonating around her. She was a nobody. How was I supposed to know? "That's the point," Anna said. It was the first time she had spoken. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was so clear that everyone stopped to listen. She stepped away from Marcus, standing on her own. She looked directly at Beatrice, who was now a sobbing, mascara-streaked mess in a $1,000 dress. "You weren't," Anna said. "You weren't supposed to know. It shouldn't matter. My name, his name, that shouldn't change the way you treat a person. But it does. For you. Mr. Blackwell, please," Hendrik begged, turning back to Marcus. He was a man watching his entire legacy evaporate. "The Omega Project, our families. We've been in New York for a century. You can't—" Marcus held up a hand. "Mr. Vandermeer, Blackwell Industries is built on a simple foundation, structural integrity. We build things that last. We build things you can trust." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Your daughter," he continued, "has just shown me that your family's foundation is rotten. It lacks integrity. It lacks compassion. It lacks basic human decency. You don't see a nobody. You see someone you can step on. And I cannot and will not partner with a company that believes that is an acceptable way to move through the world." He looked past Hendrik to his own head of PR, who was watching from the wings. "Sarah," he called out, "please make a note. Blackwell Industries is officially reopening the bidding on the Omega Project. The Vandermeer Holdings proposal is to be shredded, effective immediately, and list the reason for the contract denial as a fundamental and irreconcilable misalignment of core values." It was a corporate execution. It was a social execution. In 30 seconds, Marcus Blackwell hadn't just slammed a door. He had burned the entire house to the ground. Hendrik Vandermeer sank onto a nearby velvet bench, his head in his hands. Beatrice just stared. The reality of what had happened, the sheer, unmitigated scale of her ruin, was too vast to comprehend. The ballroom was silent. The orchestra had stopped. The whispers had died. All anyone could do was watch the fallout. Marcus turned back to Anna, his face softening instantly. "Are you ready to go? I'm craving that pizza." Anna nodded, but her eyes were still on Beatrice. The woman who, 10 minutes ago, had been the queen of the ball, was now an outcast. She was utterly alone. Chloe and Tad had vanished, evaporating into the crowd the moment the video played, desperate to avoid the shrapnel. Beatrice looked up, her tear-filled eyes meeting Anna's. There was no anger left, just a hollow, desolate confusion. You could have just told me," she whispered, a child's pathetic defense. "At the bar. You could have said who you were." "And what?" Anna asked, her voice gentle but firm. "So you could have apologized. So you could have fawned over me, like you did with my husband. So you could have treated me well, not because I was a person, but because I was powerful." She shook her head. "That's not respect, Beatrice. That's fear. That's calculation. It's simple." She used the word deliberately. Beatrice flinched as if she'd been struck. Anna took a step closer. Marcus tensed, but she put a hand on his arm. "It's okay." She knelt, just for a second, so she was at eye level with the seated, broken woman. "The dress you ruined at the bar," Anna said, her voice so quiet only Beatrice and Marcus could hear. "The grey wool one. It was a gift from my sister. The one I was waiting for. She bought it for me at a little shop on 34th Street. It cost $49. It was my favorite dress. Beatrice looked up, confused. What? The value, Beatrice, Anna said, standing up. It was never in the dress. It was in the person who wore it. It was in the sister who gave it. It was in the moment. You can't see that. You see price tags, you see logos, you see status. You're blind to everything that actually matters. She looked at the shattered flute on the floor. You're not a bad person, Beatrice. You're just an empty one. And I truly, genuinely hope you find a way to fill that. With something real. She turned away. She took Marcus's hand. That, Anna said, is everything I deserve. Marcus looked at his wife, his admiration for her so profound it was a physical ache in his chest. He smiled. Pizza. Now. Now, she agreed. They walked out. They didn't run. They didn't rush. They walked, hand in hand, straight through the center of the great hall. The crowd parted for them like the Red Sea. They left behind the shattered glass, the ruined reputation, and the stunned silence. As the great doors closed behind them, the sound of the room rushed back in. The whispers, the phone calls, the sound of a life history being rewritten in real time. By the time Hendrik van der Meer got his daughter off the bench, his phone was already vibrating with calls from his board of directors. By the time they reached the coat check, the first blog post had already gone live. By the time their car pulled away from the curb, Tad Beaumont had deleted his entire social media presence, and Chloe Davies's father was already drafting a public statement distancing his family from the unfortunate behavior of Ms. van der Meer. In the back of the Maybach, Anna kicked off her high-end heels and sighed, wiggling her toes. You were amazing, Marcus said, pulling her close. I was terrified, she admitted. My hands are still shaking. I know. He kissed her knuckles. Heads up, David, he said to the intercom. Change of plans. We're not going home. Anna looked at him. No pizza? Oh, there will be pizza, he said, a grin spreading across his face. But first, David pulled the car up not to their brownstone, but to a small, brightly lit, 24-hour diner on the Lower East Side. Marcus. What? This, he said, is where we had our first date. After that quantum physics for poets lecture. Remember? You explained string theory to me using a napkin and 2 forks. And you paid in quarters, she said, smiling. I did. He opened the door for her. I thought, before we go back to being the Blackwells, we could just be Marcus and Anna and have a truly terrible cup of coffee. She took his hand. That, she said, sounds perfect. They walked into the diner, the smell of old coffee and frying onions enveloping them. A man in a billion-dollar suit and a woman in an emerald green gown slid into a cracked vinyl booth. The waitress didn't blink. This was New York, after all. What'll it be, folks? She asked, popping her gum. Marcus looked at Anna, his eyes full of a love so profound it needed no words. 2 coffees, he said, and whatever you've got. For my wife. She's had a long night. The coffee was, as Marcus had promised, truly terrible. It was thin, tasted slightly burnt, and was served in a thick-walled, beige mug that had a small chip on the rim. It was, Anna decided, the best cup of coffee she had ever had. They sat in the cracked vinyl booth, the harsh fluorescent lights of the 24-hour diner buzzing overhead, and they talked. They didn't talk about the gala, or the Omega Project, or the spectacular implosion of Beatrice van der Meer. They talked about the new biography Anna was reading. They argued, playfully, about whether they should try to grow tomatoes on the roof next spring. They talked about the stray cat Marcus had seen in their private garden, and he'd made a mental note to have David set out some food. For an hour, they were invisible. They were just two people, in love, sharing a plate of lukewarm French fries. The emerald green Bottega gown looked strangely at home against the Formica table, and Marcus's Savile Row tuxedo was just a suit. This was their reality. The galas, the boardrooms, the billions. That was the noise. This, the quiet, the simple, the real. This was the signal. As they left, Marcus, in a move of pure nostalgia, paid in cash, leaving a $100 bill on the table for the two $2.50 coffees. The waitress, unfazed, simply pocketed it. "You kids have a good night," she called after them. When they arrived back at the brownstone, the first editions of the morning papers were already being digitally distributed. Gavin had, as always, been thorough. A single, discreetly placed news item had broken, not in the gossip columns, but in the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal. Vandermeer Holdings plummets in pre-market trading as Blackwell Industries cites core value misalignment in Omega project denial. The story was dry, professional, and utterly devastating. The video, the gala, the why, that would remain a whispered legend, the kind of story that defined New York society for a decade. The Vandermeers' ruin was absolute, not just financial, but social. They were, in the parlance of the world they'd championed, nobody. Marcus saw the alert on his phone, read the headline, and powered the device off. Upstairs, Anna was already in the kitchen, making the pot of tea she'd wanted 3 nights ago. Marcus found her there, having shed the green dress for one of his old, worn-out cashmere sweaters that was 5 sizes too big. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist as she watched the water boil. "Pizza's on the way," he murmured into her hair. "Extra pepperoni." She leaned back against him, holding her warm mug. "Good," she whispered. "I'm starving." The demon of Silicon Alley and the simple wife stood in their quiet kitchen, waiting for a pizza, illuminated only by the light over the stove. The world outside could keep its judgment. They had found their value long ago. And that's the story of Annalise Blackwell. It's a powerful reminder that wealth isn't about what you wear, and power isn't about what you can take. True strength, real class, is about how you treat people who have nothing to offer you. It's about the grace you show when you're at your lowest, and the character you have when no one is watching. The bullies in this life, the Beatrice Vandermeers, they only see the price tag. But people like Anna, they know the value. What did you think of Anna's final words to Beatrice? Was Marcus's revenge too harsh or exactly what she deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of justice and quiet strength, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another story. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. He was a king, and she was his trophy. But in one night, in front of the entire world, he decided his trophy was obsolete. He demanded the ultimate humiliation, forcing his loyal wife to kneel before his new mistress. The cameras were flashing, the crowd was hushed, and the mistress was smirking, thinking she had won. But Michael Thorne forgot one crucial detail about his quiet, elegant wife. Still waters run deep, and sometimes the most silent person in the room holds the most devastating power. What happened next wasn't just a twist, it was an execution. The penthouse on the 72nd floor of 157 wasn't a home. It was a glass and marble declaration of war against gravity, and, Amelia Vance suspected, against basic human warmth. The air was always a sterile 68 degrees, and the floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Central Park so perfect it looked like a high-definition screensaver. It was a cold, beautiful prison, and Michael Thorne was its warden. Amelia, his wife of 15 years, sat in the cavernous white living room, not on the $80,000 Minotti sofa, but on a stiff, antique chair she'd brought from her family's Boston home. It was the only piece of furniture in the 9,000-square-foot apartment that Michael hadn't picked out, and he hated it. "It's an eyesore, Amelia. It doesn't fit the aesthetic," he'd bellowed last week, fresh from a hostile takeover of a logistics firm. "Neither do I, Michael," she had replied, her voice too quiet for him to register as an insult. Today, Michael was a storm of expensive cologne and restless energy, pacing in front of the windows, his phone seemingly fused to his ear. He was planning the annual Thorne Foundation Gala, an event less about charity and more about cementing his status as a New York titan. Michael Thorne hadn't just earned his wealth, he'd willed it into existence, a fact he repeated in every Forbes interview. Amelia knew the truth. Michael hadn't willed his first million, he'd married it. The Vance name, old and respected, had opened doors that his raw, brutal ambition could only kick at. It was her family's seed money, a quiet infusion from the Vance endowment that had saved his first company, Thorne Capital, from total collapse a decade ago. It was a debt he repaid with escalating cruelty. "Yes, send the Dom Perignon, not the Cristal. I don't care about the cost, just do it," he barked into his phone. He clicked off, glared at the device, and immediately dialed another number, his thumb moving with practiced speed. His voice softened, became a slick, honeyed purr. "Chloe, Angel, yes. No, she's right here. Just reading, as usual." He smirked at Amelia, a predator's gesture. "I'll see you at 6. Wear the red. It makes you look dangerous." He hung up. Amelia didn't look up from her tablet. She was reviewing a document that had no place in this sterile apartment. It was a complex spreadsheet filled with routing numbers, offshore corporation names, Rosalind Holdings, Apex Global, Sterling Ventures, and dates. Dates that, damningly, corresponded exactly with Michael's business trips over the last 5 years. She had a name for this private file, the Sterling Audit. "You should get your hair done," Michael said, straightening the knot of his Zegna tie. "You look tired, Amelia. Faded." "I'm fine, Michael. I was just confirming the guest list for the gala." "Leave that to the new PR team. Chloe's managing it." He bared his teeth in what he thought was a smile. "She's a real shark, that one. Young, hungry, exactly what this foundation needs." Amelia finally looked up. Her eyes, a placid, intelligent grey, met his. "A shark, Michael. Be careful. They're known for circling, and they're the only animal that can't swim backward. They only move forward. Or they die." Michael stared at her, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He hated when she spoke in riddles. "Just go to that place you like. Bergdorf's. Buy a new face. The gala is in 3 days, and I want you to at least look the part." He grabbed his bespoke leather briefcase and was gone, the heavy steel and glass door closing with an expensive, sound-dampening thud. The silence that followed was heavy. Amelia counted to 60. Then she put down her tablet, walked to her antique chair, and pressed a small, hidden catch on its underside. A slim, leather-bound journal slid out. She opened it. It was full of handwritten notes, names, and numbers. She picked up her own phone, a simple, nondescript model, and dialed a number from memory. "Mr. Harding," she said, her voice now clear and cold, all the faded quality gone. "It's Amelia Vance. Yes, I'm well, thank you. I need to see you this afternoon. Bring the complete file on Rosalind Holdings. Yes. And Mr. Harding, I think it's time we contact your associates at the Post. We're moving to Phase 3. He's getting sloppy. He's getting arrogant. And he just hired a shark. She hung up, walked to the window, and looked down at the park. From this high up, the people looked like ants. Michael always said it made him feel powerful. It just made Amelia feel distant. You're not the only one who can't swim backward, Michael, she whispered to the glass. You just never thought I'd learn to swim at all. The new shark arrived at the penthouse the next morning, ostensibly for a final gala planning meeting. Chloe Sinclair was not a shark. She was a piranha, all teeth, all glitter, and drawn to the scent of blood, or in this case, the metallic tang of an Amex black card. She was 26, with hair the color of bottled fire and a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. She walked into the penthouse not as a guest, but as a conqueror, scanning the art-filled living room and finding it wanting. Amelia, darling, she trilled, air kissing the space 3 feet to the left of Amelia's head. Michael has told me so much about you. She was already wearing red, a tight-sheath dress that screamed, inappropriate for 10 a.m. Ms. Sinclair, Amelia replied, her voice perfectly even. I'm sure he has. Coffee? Oh, just a green juice, with extra spirulina. Michael is having them delivered for me every morning. Chloe ran a possessive hand over the back of Michael's white leather chair at the head of the dining table. We just have to go over the seating chart. Michael wants my input. He says I have a better feel for the new money crowd. For an hour, Amelia endured. Chloe vetoed the floral arrangements. Lilies? So, funereal. We need birds of paradise, something with passion. The music? A string quartet? Are we 80? I'm getting the chain smokers. And the guest list. Who are these people? Chloe scoffed, pointing to a name. Dr. Agnes Taylor, head of oncology at Mount Sinai. She's the primary recipient of the Foundation's donations, Miss Sinclair. The Thorn Wing for pediatric cancer is her project, Amelia explained patiently. Yeah, well, we need her at a table in the back. She's killing the vibe. I need to move the founders of Alpha Chain Crypto to Table 1. They're Michael's new partners. They are not his partners, Amelia said, her voice dropping a fraction of a degree. They are his targets. They are not to be seated anywhere near his personal table. Chloe's eyes narrowed. The glittering facade cracked. Listen, Amelia, I don't know what game you think you're playing. You're the old guard, the relic. I'm the future. Michael and I, we connect on a primal level. A primal level, Amelia repeated, as if tasting the word. I see. Does this primal connection extend to understanding SEC regulations on pump-and-dump crypto schemes? Or are you just handling the passion? Chloe's face went white, then a dangerous, blotchy red that clashed with her dress. You think you're so smart, don't you? Hiding behind your old money and your big words. Michael is tired of it. He's tired of you. She stood up, and in a move of such calculated malice, she tripped, sending her green, spirulina-filled juice an arc across the room. It landed squarely on the antique chair Amelia had brought from Boston, the fabric instantly soaking up the foul, green-black liquid. Oh no, Chloe gasped, her hands flying to her mouth in a perfect pantomime of shock. Oh, your chair. It was an accident. Amelia looked at the green stain spreading across the priceless 18th century silk brocade. She looked at Chloe's smirking, triumphant eyes. She looked at the $80,000 sofa that was untouched. She didn't move. She didn't shout. She simply took a long, slow breath. You're right, Amelia said, her voice terrifyingly calm. It was an accident. You accidentally revealed exactly who you are." "And who is that?" Chloe taunted. "A stain," Amelia said, turning to walk away. "Easily removed, and ultimately replaceable." "Is that what you think?" Chloe's voice was a shriek. "Michael is leaving you. He's telling everyone at the gala. He's giving me the new penthouse. He said you'd be nothing without him." Amelia paused at the doorway, her back to the hysterical younger woman. "A common misconception, Ms. Sinclair. One you, Michael, and the IRS all seem to share. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a call to make. Please show yourself out, and do be careful with the elevator. It's a long way down." That afternoon, Amelia met Mr. Harding not at his Wall Street office, but at a discreet coffee shop in the West Village. He was a small, bird-like man in a rumpled suit, but he had the sharpest legal mind in New York. "He's moved $5.2 million to an unregistered account in the Caymans," Amelia said, handing him a slip of paper. "This is the account number. It's under CS Global, but I've traced the incorporation papers. They're in her name, Chloe Sinclair." Harding's eyes went wide. "Amelia, this is the smoking gun. This isn't just financial fraud, it's co-conspiracy. He's actively hiding assets from the corporation and from you. He's not just hiding them, he's flaunting them," Amelia said, stirring her black coffee. "He's buying her a penthouse. He's making her the face of his foundation." "The gala is tomorrow night," Harding said, his voice grim. "The feds are ready. The SEC has their injunction. All they need is a trigger. Are you sure you want to do this? At his own event?" Amelia looked out the window. A young couple walked by, laughing, holding hands. They looked poor and happy. "Michael is a narcissist, Mr. Harding. His greatest strength is his ego. It's also his greatest weakness. He needs an audience to feel alive. Tomorrow night, he'll have the biggest audience of his life. His new partners, his old money rivals, the press." She turned back, her grey eyes glinting like steel. "I'm not just going to divorce him, Mr. Harding. I'm going to dismantle him. I want him to have everything he's ever wanted, the spotlight, the attention, the power, all focused on him for one perfect moment, right before I take it all away. It's a high-risk play, Amelia. He's volatile. He's a bully," she corrected, "and the only way to deal with a bully is to break him, publicly and completely. Tell your friends at the FBI to be ready. Tell the receivers to be on standby, and tell the Post to send their best photographer. They won't want to miss the show." The night of the Thorne Foundation Gala arrived on a wave of cold November air and the frantic flashing of paparazzi bulbs. The Plaza Hotel ballroom had been transformed into a gaudy, vaguely Roman-themed nightmare. All gold columns and white draping, a reflection of Michael's new imperial phase. Chloe had, apparently, overruled the string quartet. A heavy, pulsing electronic beat vibrated through the marble floors. Michael stood at the entrance, preening in a custom Tom Ford tuxedo, and on his arm, in a blindingly bright red dress that was cut down to her navel and slit up to her hip, was Chloe Sinclair. She was not introduced as head of PR. "My goddess!" Michael was booming to a reporter from Vanity Fair. The future Mrs. Thorne, the inspiration for this new era. And then Amelia arrived. She didn't make a grand entrance. She didn't have to. She simply appeared. She wore a simple, sleeveless, midnight blue gown by a designer so exclusive he didn't have a label. It was the color of a deep ocean, a stark, elegant contrast to the room's garish gold. Her only jewelry was a pair of diamond and sapphire earrings, the Vance sapphires, which had been in her family for a century. She was not a goddess. She was a queen, and the room, for a moment, seemed to remember the difference. The new money crowd buzzed around Chloe, but the old money, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the families who measured wealth in generations, not quarters, gravitated to Amelia. They spoke in low, respectful tones. "Amelia, you look wonderful. How is your mother's foundation, dear? That blue is magnificent." Michael watched this, his face darkening. He hated her for this, for the one thing he couldn't buy, bully, or take over, her legacy. He stalked over, grabbing her arm. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed, his fingers digging into her elbow. "You're supposed to be in the background. You're making Chloe uncomfortable." "Am I?" Amelia asked, not bothering to look at Chloe, who was glaring at them from across the room. "She seems quite buoyant." "Stop it. Stop being you. It's over, Amelia. Tonight is the launch of my new life, and you have a choice. You can sign the papers I had drawn up, a full, silent waiver of all assets, and you can walk away with your legacy, or you can fight me, and I will drag the Vance name through so much mud, your ancestors will spin in their graves." He thought it was an ultimatum. He didn't know it was a confession. "The papers," Amelia said calmly. "Where are they?" Michael was taken aback. He'd expected a fight. In my breast pocket. My lawyer, Mr. Silver, is right over there. We can sign it in the back room, right now." "No," Amelia said, pulling her arm free. "Not now. You're about to give your speech, Michael. You love the spotlight. Don't let me." She paused, a tiny cold smile touching her lips. "Detain you." She turned and walked toward the stage, taking a seat at the main table, table 1, right next to the empty seat reserved for the guest of honor. Michael watched her, baffled and furious. He had expected tears. He had expected weakness. He had not expected nothing. This cold, placid indifference was the one weapon he couldn't fight. He stormed to the bar and grabbed a glass of champagne, downing it in one gulp. Chloe slithered up to him. "She's trying to upstage me, Marky," she pouted, adjusting the slit of her dress. "That dress. It's so boring." "It's not the dress, it's her," Michael snarled. "She thinks she's better than us. She thinks she can just sit there while I change the world. While we change the world." He slammed the glass down. "You know what? She's right. It is over. But it's not going to be a quiet signing in the back room. The world is changing, and I'm going to be the one to announce it." A new, terrible idea was forming in his mind. A way to finally break her. To shatter that composure and show everyone, once and for all, who held the power. "Chloe," he said, a slow, venomous smile spreading across his face. "How do you feel about a little public theater? I think it's time we showed this queen what happens when she's been deposed." Chloe's eyes lit up. "Oh, Marky, I love it. What do I do?" "Just stand next to me," he said, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the stage. "And look like you've already won." He grabbed the microphone from the shocked MC. Thank you," he boomed, though no one was clapping. "Friends, partners, future, billionaires." The room quieted. The music stopped. A single spotlight hit Michael Thorne. He was exactly where he always wanted to be. "We are here tonight to celebrate the future, the Thorne Foundation. But a foundation is only as strong as its, well, foundation. And for 15 years my foundation has been cracked. It's been cold. It's been old." A murmur went through the crowd. This was not the standard charity speech. Amelia sat at table 1, perfectly still, watching him. She looked like a marble statue. "But tonight, that changes," Michael bellowed. "Tonight, I am announcing a new foundation, a new partnership, a new life. He yanked Chloe onto the stage with him. She posed, blowing a kiss to the baffled crypto founders. "This," he said, "is Chloe Sinclair. She is my inspiration. She is my future. And she is the real force behind Thorn Capital." A few people clapped, confused. "But first," Michael said, his voice dropping, "we have to take out the trash." He turned, his eyes locking on Amelia. He walked off the stage, the spotlight following him, and stopped directly in front of his wife. The entire ballroom, hundreds of New York's most powerful people, was silent. "Amelia," he said, his voice dripping with condescending pity, "you've been a placeholder, a relic. But you've lived in my house. You've spent my money, for a decade and a half. And you've done nothing. You've been a burden." He leaned in, his voice a grotesque whisper that the microphone picked up and amplified. "And now I'm with a real woman, a goddess. And I think you owe her an apology." The silence in the room was no longer polite. It was horrified. "What did you say, Michael?" Amelia's voice was quiet, but clear. "You heard me," he sneered, feeding off the crowd's shock. "Chloe is the new lady of the house, and you will show her respect. You will apologize to her for being in the way." "Apologize," Amelia repeated. "Yes, apologize, and I want you to kneel." A collective, audible gasp. This was no longer a speech. It was a public execution. "Kneel." "Yes, kneel." Michael was high on his own power, his face red. "Kneel before your replacement. Show everyone right now that you know your place, that you are nothing." Chloe on the stage covered her mouth in fake surprise, but her eyes were glittering with triumph. This was better than she could have imagined. Michael grabbed Amelia's arm, trying to yank her from the chair. "Kneel, you old—" "Mr. Thorn." The voice was not Amelia's. It was loud, flat, and amplified by the ballroom's side entrance. Michael froze. The entire room turned. The main doors of the ballroom, which had been closed, swung open. Standing there were not hotel staff, but two men in dark, identical, ill-fitting suits, and another man in a rumpled trench coat, holding a badge. "What happens next?" Amelia whispered, so low only Michael could hear, "is the part you didn't plan for." The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the glasses, and what happened next silenced the room. The man in the trench coat, Agent Peterson, took 2 steps into the room. He didn't seem to notice the gold columns or the baffled crypto billionaires. He only had eyes for the man holding the microphone. "Michael Thorn?" Agent Peterson's voice needed no amplification. It cut through the silence like a surgeon's scalpel. Michael, his hand still on Amelia's arm, his face locked in a mask of rage and confusion, could only stammer, Who are you? This is a private event. Get out!" "I'm Agent Peterson, FBI, White Collar Crime Division." The badge was held up, glinting in the spotlight that had, only a second before, been Michael's weapon. "And this event is now a federal crime scene." A wave of sound rippled through the room. Gasps, whispers, the scrape of a chair, the click, click, click of a post-photographer's camera. "Crime scene?" Michael blustered, finally letting go of Amelia's arm. "This is absurd. It's a mistake. It's her." He pointed a shaking finger at Amelia. "She did this. She's hysterical. She's—" "Mr. Thorn, you are under arrest," Peterson said, advancing. The 2 other agents flanked him. "You are being charged with 3 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of securities fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering." "This is impossible!" Michael shrieked, backing away. "Is it?" A new voice, dry and precise, joined the fray. Mr. Harding, Amelia's rumpled lawyer, stepped out from behind the agents. He was holding a thick stack of documents. "Mr. Thorne," Harding said, "I'd also like to introduce Mr. Davies of the U.S. Bankruptcy Court. He has been appointed the official receiver for Thorne Capital." A second man, in a crisp suit, stepped forward. "As of 6:15 p.m. this evening, all assets of Thorne Capital and all personal assets of Michael Thorne have been frozen, pending a full audit and investigation." The blood drained from Michael's face. He looked small. The custom-fit tuxedo suddenly seemed 2 sizes too big. "My assets?" he whispered. No, the crypto. The Alpha Chain. "The Alpha Chain partners you were courting, Mr. Thorne," Agent Peterson said, almost conversationally. "They are also in federal custody. It seems your pump-and-dump scheme was a little too obvious, especially when your wife provided us with the entire blueprint." All eyes, horrified, pitying, and schadenfreude-filled, swung to Amelia. She had not moved. She had not flinched. She simply sat there, a queen on her throne, watching the empire collapse. Michael turned to her. The hatred in his eyes was so pure, so potent, it was almost a physical force. "You," he breathed. "You. Bitch. You did this. You." He lunged at her. He never made it. The 2 agents were on him in a second, twisting his arms behind his back with a practiced, brutal efficiency. The sound of high-end bespoke fabric ripping was followed by the sharp, metallic click of handcuffs. "Michael!" The shriek came from the stage. Chloe Sinclair, the goddess, the future Mrs. Thorne, looked like she had seen a ghost. "Marky, tell them it's a lie! Tell them!" "Ms. Sinclair?" Agent Peterson said, not even turning around. "Chloe Sinclair?" Yes? You're under arrest, too. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud. It seems the $5.2 million Mr. Thorne wired to your personal account in the Caymans this morning was, in fact, stolen from his investors." It was a gift," Chloe stammered, as the first agent started leading Michael, now white-faced and trembling, toward the door. A bonus for my PR work." "I'm sure it was," Peterson said. A female officer, who had entered unnoticed, was now walking onto the stage. "You'll have plenty of time to explain your PR duties downtown." "No, you can't!" Chloe shrieked, backing away. "My dress! It's couture!" The officer didn't blink, simply grabbed her wrist. The goddess was cuffed. The room was absolutely, profoundly silent. The only sound was Michael, who had stopped struggling, his entire body rigid. He was staring at Amelia. "Why?" he whispered, his voice broken. "I gave you everything." Amelia Vance finally stood. The spotlight which had been chasing Michael found her. She seemed to radiate a cold blue light. She smoothed the front of her gown, walked past the FBI agents, and stood directly in front of her husband. She did not slap him. She did not raise her voice. She simply leaned in close, her face inches from his, and said, "You asked me to kneel, Michael. You demanded I apologize." She paused, holding his gaze. "So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't do this 5 years ago. And as for kneeling," she looked down at his cuffed hands. She looked at the federal agents holding him. She looked at the ruins of his life, laid bare in a ballroom he had paid for with stolen money. "It appears," she said, her voice clear and carrying across the silent room, "that you're the one who has been brought to your knees. Not me." She stepped back. "Agent Peterson, he's all yours." As Michael Thorne was dragged, speechless, from the ballroom, and a weeping Chloe Sinclair was led off the stage, Amelia Vance turned to the stunned crowd. She picked up the microphone Michael had dropped. "Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice ringing with an authority no one had ever heard from her. "My apologies for the interruption. It appears the Thorn Foundation is under new management, effective immediately." She looked at Dr. Agnes Taylor, the oncologist, who was sitting stunned at a back table. "Dr. Taylor," Amelia called out, "I believe we have a pediatric cancer wing to fund. Please come join me at this table. We have a lot to discuss." The silence was broken, not by gasps, but by a single, slow clap. Then another, and another. Within 10 seconds, the entire room, the old money, the new money, the press, was giving Amelia Vance a standing ovation. The days that followed were a media hurricane. "Titan in chains!" screamed the Post. "Throne of lies," declared the Daily News. The Gala Gavel, how one woman brought down Wall Street's biggest bully. But Amelia was nowhere to be found. She had vanished from the penthouse, leaving behind the green-stained chair, the $80,000 sofas, and a life she'd never wanted. She was in Mr. Harding's decidedly non-flashy office on a lower Manhattan side street, sipping tea. The office was filled with books, not art, and the only view was of a brick wall. Amelia had never felt more at home. "They've offered him a plea deal," Harding said, peering at her over his glasses. 15 years. If he flips on his partners in Singapore and testifies against Ms. Sinclair. "He'll take it," Amelia said, not looking up from the document she was signing. "Michael is a bully, but he's also a coward. He'll throw Chloe under the bus to save himself 3 years. He already has. Her bail was denied. Her defense is, 'I was in love.' She was in love with his bank account, a common, and in her case, indictable, disease." Amelia signed the last page with a flourish. "There, the Vance Endowment. It's now officially chartered as the Vance Taylor Foundation for Pediatric Research." Harding smiled. "You've endowed it with the full amount seized from the frozen assets." "My assets, Mr. Harding. Let's be clear. The money he stole." This was the part the media didn't know. The twist within the twist. Harding picked up a different file. This one was old, the manila folder soft and faded. "The Sterling audit," he said. "I've reviewed it a dozen times. Amelia, it's a masterpiece of forensic accounting. You missed nothing." How did you know?" Amelia finally looked up. Her grey eyes were no longer cold. They were sad. "I didn't at first," she said. "For the first 5 years, I thought he was just difficult, arrogant. I thought he resented me for my family's money, for saving him." She took a sip of tea. "Then, on our 10th anniversary, he was drunk, triumphant. He'd just closed a massive deal, the one that put him on the Forbes list. He toasted. To Arthur Vance, the old fool. 'Your father,' Harding said softly. 'My father, who died of a heart attack when his company, Sterling Ventures, went bankrupt 20 years ago. A bankruptcy that happened mysteriously. A hostile takeover from an unknown offshore entity.' Harding's eyes widened. "Rosalind Holdings." "Rosalind Holdings," Amelia confirmed. "Named for his mother." "Michael, he didn't just marry my family's money, Mr. Harding. He stole it. He built his entire empire on the ruins of my father's life. He bankrupted my family, and then he married me to gain the legitimacy of the Vance name, all while he was secretly, systematically, siphoning the last of the Vance endowment into his own pockets." The silence in the small office was profound. He told me," she whispered, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek, the first she had shed. "He told me he married me because he wanted to own the last thing the Vances had left. He thought it was a compliment." "My God," Harding breathed. I found the first clue 5 years ago, Amelia continued, composing herself. A stray transfer slip. Sterling. Why would he name a file Sterling? It was his first mistake. His ego. He needed the reminder. From there, I just followed the money. I learned to code. I learned forensic accounting. I took online classes. He thought I was faded, reading. He thought I was shopping. I was hunting. This wasn't a divorce, Amelia, Harding said, looking at her with a new, profound respect. This was a reclamation. He took my father's company, my father's money, and my father's name, she said, her voice hard as steel. I wasn't just informing the FBI. I was balancing the ledger. It wasn't just about his fraud. It was about all his sins. And Chloe? A pawn. A stupid, greedy girl he used to try and humiliate me. She was the final straw. When he demanded I kneel, Amelia's eyes flashed. He didn't just demand my humiliation. He was demanding the humiliation of my father's memory. I was happy to let the FBI step in at that exact moment. He deserved an audience for his downfall. He'd worked so hard to get one. She stood up, smoothing her simple, dark dress. The penthouse? Harding asked. Liquidate it, all of it. The ugly sofas, the art, the cars. Sell it all and put the money into the foundation. Except, she paused. Except what? The antique chair, the one Ms. Sinclair so helpfully redecorated. Send it to my new apartment. But it's ruined. It's not ruined, Mr. Harding, Amelia said, a small smile playing on her lips. It's a reminder that stains can be cleaned, and that even the oldest, most faded things can have a strength you never saw coming. While Michael Thorne's world shrank to an 8 by 10 foot cell, and Chloe Sinclair's to a 6-person holding pen, Amelia's world began to expand. The first month was about the unbecoming. She was unbecoming Mrs. Michael Thorne. She moved into a beautiful, but not ostentatious, pre-war apartment on the West Side. It had bookshelves instead of glass walls, and warm wooden floors instead of cold marble. She bought a dog, a scruffy rescue mutt she named Sterling. She sat for one, and only one, interview. It was with the Vanity Fair reporter who had been at the gala. The reporter had expected a woman scorned. She found a CEO. Mrs. Vance, or do you prefer Ms. Vance? Amelia is fine. Amelia, your ex-husband's trial, the trial of the Titan. Do you have any comment on his 18-year sentence? I believe the justice system, while imperfect, arrived at a fair and logical conclusion based on the evidence presented, much of which I provided. And Chloe Sinclair? 5 years. The mistress of misery. Ms. Sinclair's greed was a liability. She was a co-conspirator who believed she was a partner. A common mistake. I wish her a period of reflection. The press has painted this as a revenge story. A woman betrayed. Is that how you see it? Amelia leaned forward. Revenge is a hot, messy emotion. It's what Michael wanted. He wanted me to scream, to cry, to throw a $20,000 vase. I don't deal in hot, I deal in cold. What I executed was not revenge, it was restitution. It was a corporate restructuring of a life built on fraudulent grounds. Michael Thorne was a bad investment. I corrected the market. The article, when it came out, didn't have a picture of a victim. It had a picture of Amelia, smiling, in a lab coat, standing next to Dr. Taylor in the newly opened, state-of-the-art Vance Taylor wing at Mount Sinai. But the unbecoming wasn't without its ghosts. One afternoon, sorting through the last boxes from her old life, she found a letter. It was from Michael, sent from prison via his lawyer. Against Mr. Harding's advice, she opened it. It was not an apology. It was 6 pages of single-spaced, handwritten venom. He called her a viper, a bloodless snake, a relic, a nothing. He blamed her for everything, for his failure, for his arrest, for the bad food. "You loved watching me fall," he wrote. "You always wanted this. You were jealous of my success." Emilia read the entire pathetic letter. She read it as sterling, her mutt snored at her feet. She didn't burn it. She didn't rip it up. She took out a red pen. She calmly went through, circling the 23 spelling errors, the 14 grammatical mistakes, and the 7 logical fallacies. At the top, she wrote, "See me after class." She mailed it back to the prison. She never heard from Michael Thorne again. As for Chloe, she tried to sell her story from prison. My Nights with the Titan. No one bought it. The 15 minutes of fame she had so desperately craved had turned into 5 years of hard time. Upon her release, she was deported. Her global holdings, as it turned out, were as fake as her love for Michael. Emilia's only other ghost was the chair. It sat in her new study, the green stain still faded, but visible on the silk. It was, as she'd said, a reminder. One day, Mr. Harding came to visit, bringing by the final dissolution papers. "You really kept it," he said, touching the stained fabric. "I did," Emilia said, pouring them both a brandy. "Why? Surely you can have it restored." "Oh, I could," Emilia said, handing him a glass. "But I like it. It reminds me that some things look fragile, but are strong enough to withstand even the most toxic spills." Harding raised his glass. To foundations," Emilia said, her eyes bright. "The real kind, the ones that last." 1 year to the day. The Plaza Hotel ballroom was, once again, the most sought-after invitation in New York. But the room, and the city's reason for being there, was unrecognizable. The date was the only thing that remained the same. The very air in the room was different. A year ago, it had been thick with heavy, thumping electronic music, the scent of expensive but cloying perfume, and the electric, predatory tension of a Wall Street trading floor. Tonight, the air was light. A string quartet, a real one, Emilia had insisted, played Bach in a corner. The lighting was not the gaudy, Roman gold uplighting of Michael's ego, but a soft, elegant glow in deep sapphire and silver, colors that became known in foundation circles as Vance Taylor blue. The scent was a clean, subtle mix of fresh lilies, the funereal flowers Chloe had despised, and the aroma of a world-class dinner. The guests were different too. The Alpha Chain crypto founders were, by now, halfway through their own prison sentences. The influencers and new money sharks were absent, having found a new, gaudy titan to circle. Tonight, the tables were filled with doctors in unassuming suits, Nobel laureate researchers with ink stains on their cuffs, Pulitzer-winning journalists, old money philanthropists who had once pitied Emilia, and, most importantly, families. Families who had, in the past year, been given a priceless gift by the work being done in this room. Time. Emilia Vance stood near the entrance, not as a spectator, but as the host, the gravitational center of the room. She was not in the midnight blue armor she had worn to her own war. She was in a sleeveless, floor-length gown of liquid silver, a dress that caught the light and seemed to turn it into warmth. Her hair was down, and her only jewelry was a simple, elegant pearl necklace. She was not a queen. She was not a relic. She was, simply, Emilia. Mr. Harding, now on the Foundation's board, came up to her, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He looked entirely out of place in his rumpled suit, and entirely blissfully happy. "I must say, Amelia," he said, handing her a glass, "I never expected to be back here." "Neither did I, Mr. Harding," she smiled. "But I couldn't let him have the last memory in this room. We're overwriting the file." "It's warm," Harding said, looking around at the genuine laughter, the impassioned conversations. His version was so cold. "It's real, Mr. Harding," Amelia said, touching his arm. "That's the difference." "To foundations, then," he said, raising his glass. "The real kind," she replied, and they clinked. As Harding moved off to talk to a senator, a couple approached Amelia. They were young, their clothes nice but not designer. The woman's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Miss Vance?" the man said, his voice thick. We're the Wards, our son, Leo." Amelia's smile transformed. It lost all its hostess quality and became something personal, something present. "Mr. and Mrs. Ward. How is he?" He's in remission," the woman burst out, a tear finally escaping and running down her cheek. "The new CAR-T trial, the one you funded. Dr. Taylor said he was a perfect candidate. He's in his room right now, at the housing wing, probably breaking the rules about screen time." The man grabbed Amelia's hand, his grip tight and shaking. We were sleeping on a cot in the hallway. We were about to lose our house. Your foundation, the pediatric wing. You didn't just give us our son back, Ms. Vance. You gave us everything." Amelia felt her own eyes sting. This was the why. This was the answer to the hollow, aching, cold years in the penthouse. She gently freed her hand and placed it on the woman's arm. "It was Dr. Taylor's work, Mrs. Ward. I just balanced the books so she could do it." "No," the woman said, shaking her head, her voice fierce. "Dr. Taylor saved his body. You saved our family. You are a part of our family now." "Thank you," Amelia whispered, her voice catching. "Now please go enjoy your dinner, and tell Leo I said, game on." The couple moved away, looking dazed and grateful. Amelia took a steadying breath, the silver of her dress rising and falling. She felt a presence at her side. It was Dr. Agnes Taylor, looking sharp and uncomfortable in a dark velvet suit. "You okay?" Agnes asked, her eyes following the Wards. "More than," Amelia replied. "You're on, Agnes. Are you okay?" "I face down death, disease, and multisyllabic pharmaceutical names every day, Amelia," Agnes grumbled, adjusting her glasses. "But public speaking? That scares me." "You'll be brilliant. Just tell them the truth. It's what this whole night is about." "Right. The truth." Agnes gave her a small, rare smile. "Wish me luck." Amelia watched as her friend, her partner, walked to the stage. The room quieted instantly. Agnes tapped the microphone. "This thing on? Good. I'm a doctor, not a public speaker, so I'll keep this brief. A year ago, my pediatric oncology wing was a line-item budget proposal. It was a nice-to-have that was perpetually underfunded. We had the talent, but not the tools. We were a rounding error." She looked out at the crowd. "Tonight, I can announce that the Vance Taylor wing has been operational for 9 months. We have, as of this morning, enrolled our 50th patient in 3 separate, fully funded clinical trials. Our patient family housing is at 100% capacity, and we've just broken ground on a second building. We are saving lives." The applause was heartfelt. Agnes held up a hand. "Thank you. But I am not the person you should be clapping for. This was all made possible by one person. And I'm not talking about a wealthy patron who wrote a check and walked away. I'm talking about a partner." She turned, her eyes finding Amelia in the crowd. The press, in their infinite wisdom, have tried to paint Amelia Vance as a woman scorned, or a viper, or a victim. They are, as usual, lazy and wrong on all counts. The woman I know is not a socialite. The woman I know is the most brilliant, meticulous, and ruthless forensic accountant I have ever met. A ripple of surprised laughter went through the room. She didn't just donate money. She reclaimed it. She walked into my office not with a checkbook, but with a stack of binders. She had audited, by herself, a decade of complex international fraud. She knew, to the penny, what was stolen, where it was, and how to get it back. She didn't just fund this foundation, she built it. From the ruins of something false, she built something true. Agnes's voice, usually so clinical, was now ringing with passion. The world wants to talk about her marriage. I want to talk about her math. The world wants to call her a survivor. I call her our founder. Ladies and gentlemen, my partner, my friend, Amelia Vance. The applause was thunderous. It was not the schadenfreude-filled, shocked applause of a year ago. It was a deep, rolling, earned ovation. Amelia walked to the stage, stood at the podium, and looked out. This was the exact spot, the exact patch of carpet where Michael had stood, high on his own venom, the exact spotlight that had been intended to burn her to ashes. She felt a flicker of that night, the cold, the dread, the utter, suffocating humiliation of his voice. Kneel. She took a long, slow breath, the light on her silver dress. He built a stage to perform on, she thought. I built a hospital wing. We are not the same. The ghost vanished. The room was just a room. The people were just people. And she was, finally, just Amelia. Thank you, Agnes, she began, her voice warm, sure, and amplified, filling the room. She's right, you know. She's the brilliant doctor. I'm just the accountant. The room laughed with her. A year ago, in this very ballroom, a different kind of event took place. A hush fell. They were all leaning in. It was a night of theatre, a performance. It was loud, it was bright, and it was hollow. It was a party built on a foundation of sand, destined to be washed away by the first tide. I was a part of that, she continued, her voice clear. I lived a life that was all surfaces. I was quiet. I was faded, I believe was the term. A few people who had been at the first gala shifted in their seats. I think, for a very long time, I mistook my own silence for weakness. I know many other people did. But I have learned that silence isn't weakness. Silence is potential. It's the space where you can listen, where you can watch, where you can learn. It's the moment before the action, and when you are silent for 15 years, you learn a great deal. My father, Arthur Vance, had a saying, she said, her voice softening. He told me, Amelia, you can build something a mile high, or you can build it a mile deep. The mile-high structure is what everyone sees. It's impressive. It's all glass and steel, and it catches the sun. It casts a long, impressive shadow. But it's vulnerable. It's mostly just air. And it's built to be seen, not to last. Michael Thorne, she said, and the name, spoken for the first time, landed with a dead, final thud. He built a mile high, and we all saw what happens when a little wind blows. A mile-deep foundation. You never see it. It's the hard part. It's the calculations, the concrete, the rebar. It's the truth that holds everything else up. It's boring and unglamorous, and it's the only part that matters. It's what lasts. She looked at Dr. Taylor. The work Agnes does, the work the wards and 49 other families are a part of, that is mile-deep work. What we are doing here tonight, all of us, is not a performance. It is not a party for our own egos. This is the real foundation. This is the shelter from the storm. This is the cure. This is the future. I was challenged in this room to know my place. I'm happy to report that after a year, I finally found it. It is not at a table in the back, and it is not on a stage. It is with all of you. Building. Thank you. She finished, and for the second time in this room, there was silence. But it was not horror, and it was not shock. It was a profound, shared respect. And then the applause began, and it was a storm. Later, as the evening was winding down, Amelia was standing by the dessert table in deep discussion with Dr. Taylor about a new protein folding algorithm. A young reporter, new on the beat, her eyes wide, approached her. "Miss Vance, amazing speech. That was raw. I just have one question. I know you've moved on, but don't you think, on some level, this," the reporter gestured to the successful, brilliant, warm room, "is all just the best revenge?" Amelia looked at the young woman. She didn't sigh. She didn't roll her eyes. She just smiled, a small, patient smile, and picked up a chocolate-covered strawberry. "Revenge, dear," she said, "is a hot, messy, short-sighted emotion. It's what Michael wanted. He wanted a fight. I gave him an audit. Revenge is about passion. What I did was about math. It's a very different animal." She gestured to the room. This is not revenge. This is restitution. This is the portfolio being rebalanced to its correct, original state. This is just what was supposed to be." The reporter, scribbling furiously, nodded. Okay, just one more question then. The media, we've called you a victim, a survivor, a titan slayer. After all this, how do you see yourself? Are you a survivor? This was the final beat. Amelia paused. She looked past the reporter, across the room. She saw Mr. Harding, laughing with a Supreme Court justice. She saw the Ward family, sharing a slice of cheesecake, the husband's arm around his wife. She saw Dr. Taylor in a corner, arguing animatedly with a Nobel laureate, her hands flying. "A survivor," Amelia said, tasting the word. "That's an interesting choice. A survivor is someone who is defined by what happened to them. They're looking backward. Their story is over. They're just trying to get through the day." She turned, her silver-gowned figure catching the light, and her grey eyes, once so cold, were now bright. She gave the reporter a full, genuine smile. "I'm not getting through anymore." She took a bite of the strawberry, a perfect, final punctuation. "I'm getting started." And just like that, Amelia Vance proved that the most powerful person in the room isn't the one with the loudest voice, but the one with the best laid plans. She didn't just get divorced. She delivered justice. She didn't just survive. She thrived. What do you think of Amelia's ultimate move? Was it cold-blooded revenge or perfect, calculated justice? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. So many people, women and men, are trapped in situations where they feel powerless, like a relic in their own lives. If this story touched you or reminded you of your own strength, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And of course, subscribe to our channel for more stories of karma, twists, and justice being served. Until next time, remember, never underestimate the quiet one.